Can I tell you guys a secret? That last little clip of Dizzy running around before the screen goes to those little lights, I love watching that clip so much that I had to put the extra little bit on the end there to like snap me out of it every time. It's like, oh, wait, we're going live. I gotta be ready. I get so lost in that clip of Dizzy. And if you didn't hear already, there should be a link in the description. I'd love to be able to put your dogs up in the video there. So there's a link for a form if you would like to see your dogs in the countdown timer too. So I just thought it would be fun. If you happen to have some good videos of your dogs, feel free to share them. But anyway, today, so such drama around one little piece of dog equipment. What do you guys think about retractable leashes? They seem to be super popular. You can find them in just about any pet supply store, and you see people out using them on walks. So that leads me to believe that quite a few people really like the Flexi Leads. And yet, every dog trainer that I've ever talked to about it seems to have quite the opposite feelings. So what's the deal? I'm Jennifer Malloway, your dog trainer for the evening, and this is Dizzy, and today we are going to be talking about the pros and cons of Flexis and some alternatives that you might not have thought of, and hopefully some pro tips in there to to make the most out of whatever gear you choose. So, Diz. Oh man, I've created a monster. And hi Jesse and hi CK. Dizzy cries because he wants food. From the time we got this desk all set up, I've like kept treats here so that I can reward him on his bed back there, which I've talked to you guys about before. But now I've got food on the desk, which means he's very aware of it at all times. And unfortunately, I've gotten into the habit of rewarding him while I'm sitting here and he's doing whatever he's doing. So we're gonna have to do something about that, aren't we? Diz, you can either go lie down or you can go downstairs. What do you want? Go lie down. Thank you. So yeah, that's gonna continue to be a problem, but we'll fix it. So anyway, first of all, if you're not already familiar with the Flexi Lead, which it's hard to believe, but if you've got a dog or know anybody with dogs, you've seen them. It's a plastic handle with a cord that extends out further the further away that you get from your dog and coils back up as you get closer to your dog. I don't have one here to show you because I don't like to use them, but you guys know what I'm talking about. They look like this. Yeah, plastic handle with a little clip that goes to the dog's collar or harness, and then yeah, the coil wraps up all in there. Good boy, Dizzy. There we go. Yeah, so if you have not used one before, just a little bit more detail to give you a clearer picture. That plastic handle, to me it feels quite bulky because it has to house the whole cord, which is usually like probably around 20 to 25 feet of length, plus the actual mechanisms to reel it in, and it also has a locking mechanism so that you can stop it from extending or recoiling when it's convenient. So yeah, that's for anybody who doesn't know what a Flexi Lead is. I've also been started out calling it a Flexi Lead, also known as a retractable leash. Flexi, I believe, was the brand name of the first and still the most popular brand of retractable leash. So it's kind of like Kleenexes, we call tissues Kleenexes, even though Kleenex is a brand name. Flexi is kind of the same way, but I'll use the terms interchangeably, retractable leash or Flexi Lead. And they are nice. There are some pros to having the Flexi Lead. Mainly, at least, I tried to sit down and make a my own pros and cons list yesterday, and I was having trouble coming up with a ton of pros. But obviously, they're nice because they give your dog more freedom to walk further from you so that they get to sniff more of their environment, which is really, really nice without you having to stray from the path to actually follow where they need to go or where they want to go. So that's really nice and convenient, and you don't have to manage that extra line because it does it for you. So convenience, really, really nice about the Flexi Lead. If anybody is watching, I would love your feedback. If you use Flexis, if you like them, can you think of are there other pros to using a Flexi Lead? If you've got any, please leave them in the comments because I'd love to be able to add them to my own list. Yeah, for for those of you who do love them and don't want to hear the downsides, here's your stop. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time. For everybody who's still here, is there anybody still here? Say howdy in the comments if you're sticking with me. We have there are quite a few downsides to using the Flexi Lead. The first one that I will talk about comes from the trainer in me. And I don't like the Flexis because they are designed to teach dogs to pull on leash. Maybe that sounds crazy, but hear me out. A dog who's on a Flexi Lead is going to experience two things. First, they feel the sensation of the pressure on their neck from where the Flexi attaches to the collar when they pull. And second, they are experiencing getting to move forward toward whatever they want to sniff, whatever they want to get to. And so the sensation of pulling, which is that pressure on the neck, or I guess if it's attached to a harness too, that pressure on whatever gear they're wearing, pressure followed by the reward of getting closer to what they want. And so when people are, when anybody is teaching their dog to walk nicely on a loose leash, any good trainer would advise them to, one, reward the dog for walking along when the leash is loose and prevent the dog from being rewarded by the environment by that forward motion when the leash is taut. So by its very design, the Flexi breaks rule number 2, which means you're fighting against yourself if you are actively trying to teach your dog not to pull on the leash. And, you know, training a dog to walk nicely on a leash is hard enough. You know, we gotta walk our dogs all the time, so we have to be aware of how that behavior of pulling or walking nicely, how those behaviors are being rewarded or not at all times, anytime our dog is on leash. So loose leash walking can be a bit of a challenge to be consistent when we're teaching. So a Flexi complicates that, and yeah, anything that makes this harder for my clients, like, fine, if you want to use a Flexi, use it later after you've taught the dog to walk nicely on a leash, but certainly not for a dog who's learning still. CK says, I've used them, but I don't like them because they aren't easy to control. I prefer leads where I can adjust the link. What do you mean by not easy to control? I mean, I find, like, I have tiny hands, so I find the bulky handle to be quite an encumbrance to me, but that's not a problem for everybody. That's just, you know, that's just the nature of my tiny hands. But easy to control. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I do feel like I have more control when, I don't know. It's like the Flexi's too complicated for me. You've got the button and you've got to make sure, I don't know. So I think I get you, but if you want to elaborate, go for it. Paul says Flexis are for over-the-top lazy pet owners. You know, I can see why some people would think that, and if you are I just don't like to go there because I understand wanting things to be convenient. We all want things to be more convenient, right? And that is what the Flexi offers in some ways. So it has its draws, you know? I don't think that's being lazy, because like, yeah, like we all want things to be more convenient, and if using products that do that for us makes things more convenient, like that's not really lazy. We've got enough to deal with in our lives. But yeah. Yeah, so anyway, Flexis teach dogs to pull, and for that reason alone, I would just not ever recommend a Flexi for a dog who has not already been taught to walk nicely on a loose leash. Now, if you don't care if your dog pulls on a leash, and I know a lot of small dog owners don't really mind, then that reason doesn't really apply to you, but you may want to stay tuned because there are more reasons. CK says, I don't think the lock mechanism is very good and could release when they pull. Also, I don't think that little string is that durable. I like sturdy leads. Yeah, and those kind of play into some of the reasons that we're going to get down to later. You've hit on some good points there. So reason number 2 is another kind of, it's a convenience and like a training thing. Hopefully you'll see what I mean. So a Flexi is difficult to use as a tether. So I use my flat leash as a tether in so many situations. I use it for training. I use it to manage my dog when a gate or a crate or any other management device is unavailable. I use it to attach my dog to maybe a restaurant or cafe table if I want him to be able to come along, so that I can still be hands-free and eat my food or drink my coffee or whatever. A Flexi's really, you really can't do that, at least not safely, or kind of clumsily, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a flat leash or a rope leash is a lot easier to use as a tether, and tethers are really handy. I think every new puppy owner I've ever taught anything, I've probably recommended using a tether at some point or another. So a flat leash is just far better for that. Now, of course, if you still want to use the Flexi, like, you could always bring along an extra, use a flat leash at home and use the Flexi for walks, or bring along like an extra really light flat leash. They make them really small, so it wouldn't be that big a deal. So there's that. But yeah, just unless you make your own modifications to the Flexi, they don't really work as a tether. Now, number 3 is those cords get tangled. I mean, every dog owner who's ever walked a dog on a leash understands that leashes get tangled when dogs meet people, when dogs meet other dogs. It's a lot of times it's an excited frenzy, or maybe an angry frenzy, I don't know. Lots of things can happen, but leashes get tangled, and those little cords get tangled, and those are a lot harder to untangle. Not to mention those tiny thin little cords, you know, I'm not going to be able to like explain the physics, but the the physics of those cords getting wrapped around legs or fingers, or of dog or human, like it puts so much more pressure on a smaller area, which means it's gonna hurt a lot more and potentially do a lot more damage. Yeah, like that cord getting wrapped around a finger, like, I mean, not to get gross, you guys, but like I've read of in addition to like some amputations happening, degloving has happened before, and I don't even want to describe it because I don't like thinking about it. It's like really gross, but essentially it's where like your skin gets caught and it like comes off, leaving just like, ew. Ugh, don't Google it, it's bad. I made that mistake once. But yeah, so getting all tangled up is like, that can be dangerous for humans and for the dogs. And the other thing about it being more difficult to get all that mess untangled is that dogs who are dogs who are restricted in their movements, which any leash does, but if they are restricted in their movements and suddenly we as humans don't have control because our leashes are tangled, that causes it's a cause of dog fights. Happens all the time. I actually don't like. I mean, this is my personal preference, my own bias. I recognize that it is a bias, and everybody can choose your own adventure. But my preference is not to let dogs meet on leash ever. It just meeting on leash can be a recipe for disaster. Off leash interactions, like a lot of dogs are wonderful, sweet, playful dogs with other dogs when they're off leash, but as soon as they're on leash, like problems arise. And so I don't like to let dogs meet on leash at all. But again, when those leashes get all tangled up and we can't separate them, if a dog fight broke out, then suddenly you've got two dogs who are stuck together and fighting, and it's like that, no, but that's a bad day. That's just a bad day for everybody. Yeah, CK, don't Google that. There's, no, it's not good. Anyway, so I mentioned, yeah, that cord getting wrapped around human legs, dog legs, limbs, fingers, all the things, like, can cause serious injury. That can go through skin very easily. Our skin is not that. We're very fragile. And our dog's skin is even thinner than ours. So yeah, those little cords, like, they scare me. I don't know, that's me. Hey Sarah, welcome. We just got past the gross part, so you're just in time. So yeah, and broken bones, that's happened before too. So they can be dangerous. Now, like I said at the beginning, like, a lot of people use these, and many people, they could use it their dog's whole life, and like nothing terrible ever happens. So I don't want to leave the impression that like you're gonna get hurt if you use them, because a lot of it, is the user's awareness of, is it functioning properly, and being aware of your surroundings. But these things do happen, so it's just good to be aware of what can happen. The problem that I see is that sometimes the user is not as aware as they should be, and you run into even more problems when that happens. Okay, I'm gonna let him out. Bye, Diz. Finally got rid of him. The scoundrel. Anyway, so yeah, so because we don't have to worry about our dog pulling, that's taken all the pressure off of us. Our dog is free to do what they will. Sometimes that gives us a false sense of relaxation, security, I don't know what to call it, but we can kind of fall into this, like, I don't have to be paying as close attention, and things can happen, like your dog can wander up to a human who does not want to interact with your dog, which is just rude, or your dog can wander up to another dog who maybe does not want to interact, which, again, dog fights can ensue. Not very nice. Your dog can find something that is not good for them. It's potentially toxic. The last 6-7 years living in San Francisco, I heard so many stories of people like leaving, I don't know, pooping in the woods after taking drugs, and dogs eating that and like getting high and having to go to the hospital, or horrible people actually leaving out like poisoned food. Dog haters. But anyway, dogs can get it all the time. Dogs get into things that they should not. So yeah, it's that false sense of security. along the same lines, in small spaces, like if you're walking your dog down a sidewalk, there's only so much room, and if there's anybody else who might want to use that sidewalk at the same time, if you are just letting your dog use the full length of that leash, you know, you're going to be clotheslining somebody, or at least inconveniencing them, which, you know, is going to make people think like, wow, this is a very rude person. And you don't want anybody thinking that about you, of course. Sarah says, start a catchy education action about it on the internet, something short and catchy, attention grabbing. What about Flexi Leads in general, or about something I said? Yeah, I mean, I'm not the first person to have this discussion online. But not everybody is aware of all the things, so it doesn't hurt to have it out there more. So also, having a dog on a Flexi Lead as your primary walking leash means that if they're further away, you can't protect them. And like I said, like a lot of small dog owners like the Flexis. I see way more owners of small dogs using them versus owners of big dogs, because as CK pointed out earlier, those cords can snap. And if your dog is very large and strong, that becomes more likely. So small dog owners, I see a higher incidence of small dog owners using the Flexi. But small dogs get attacked a lot. I mean, like far more often than I want to say. But unfortunately, because this is the world that I live and work in, I hear all the stories. Every time a small dog gets attacked, I read about it. And so it happens all the time. And if they are further from you, you can't really reel that in on your own. So if someone has a hold of your dog, you can't save your dog by reeling it in. You still have to go get them. And yeah, there's very, very little you can do about it. Another thing that you probably don't want to Google is dogs getting, like, people who use maybe live in an elevator building, dogs getting stuck on the other side of an elevator door, and that elevator takes off and those dogs get hanged. Really, really traumatizing to watch. I mean, I haven't seen like the videos that I have seen, like the dog, somebody's there to save the dogs, but like that is terrifying. Like it's got to be terrifying for the dog, for the owner, like, oh my goodness. So yeah, that false sense of security, and like you're thinking, oh, my dog has more freedom and it's convenient and that's great, but like all of a sudden that door closes and you're like, crap. Where's the emergency button? Yeah. Sarah, okay, so the Flexi Leads, Sarah says, people can't change what they don't know about. This would not be a difficult PSA campaign to craft. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know, like PSAs, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, like a lot of people like them and use them, and they're I don't know. I mean, they're on the market. They're so prevalent. I don't know. I feel like my role, I mean, maybe you're right. Like the knowledge doesn't hurt. People should know. And that's kind of what I was thinking, is like my role is just to like give people the information. This is my PSA. And then they can make their own decisions. There are very few things in the dog behavior training world that I think like should be hardline. They should be, illegal, regulated, anything like that. Flexis wouldn't be in that category for me. Other things, yes, but not the Flexis. But yeah, no, you're right. People probably don't think twice about it. But I people also like, it's a risk assessment, right? I know that I as a person, like, I'm very risk averse. Like I would just much rather prevent bad things before they happen. I would much rather just avoid risks that I feel are unnecessary. But as I said, like, even without all the risks, I probably still wouldn't use a Flexi because that handle's just too bulky for my little hands. So yeah, dogs on Flexis, being further away means that if something does go wrong, it's much harder for you to protect them. And coming to the point that CK brought up earlier, those cords do snap, and they can snap even with a little dog on leash. You know, it may possibly be more likely with a larger or stronger dog, but I mean, I've walked plenty of like 15, 20-pound dogs, and they are strong. Like, you know, when they want to go somewhere, those little guys are strong. And just, you know, with wear and tear, those cords weaken and they do snap. And then, you know, not only is your dog suddenly free, but those cords, because they're suddenly snapping and coiling back, like, there's risk of like that slapping back in your face, your eye, like you could get an eye taken out. Yeah, I don't like to risk that. I'd rather use something that is just thicker and stronger, and that I have more control over. Yes, also those handles, the locking mechanism on those handles can malfunction. So maybe depending on when it happens, you know, either it won't uncoil, which can be frustrating, or it won't recoil, and that can be dangerous. So yeah, if that locking mechanism malfunctions, that's suddenly a problem you were not expecting to have. And then also, again, because those handles are so bulky, they get dropped more frequently than another type of leash might. And dropping a leash, you know, like, it happens and you're like, oh, whoops, and you just pick up your leash and everything's fine. But if your dog has that cord extended at all and you drop that leash, all of a sudden there's a loud noise, and a loud noise bouncing and clanking after them. That handle suddenly becomes this thing that's chasing your dog, which would probably, that would be alarming to even the most like unfazable dog. But if your dog is at all fearful or easily startled, fearful or easily startled, that is going to be terrifying. And a panicking dog is not going to be listening to anything you say. They're just going to take off. And guess what? That handle's going to continue to follow them, and who knows, could continue to follow them into a busy street or somewhere where they could get even, like, I mean, I just hate to think it. So it can be very scary for dogs, and of course for us that can be scary and possibly heartbreaking. So yeah. Sarah says, it's a conversation. You could potentially reach more than a handful of viewers who love you and grow your channel at the same time. We'll have to talk about it, Sarah. I don't know. I don't know. There's got to be something that I have to learn here. I'm just here to torture another aspect of your Sagittarian nature. No, it's fine. It's fine. I like the conversation. And PSAs are great. I love a good PSA. So that brings me to the end of my list of things that can go wrong with the Flexi, potential reasons that I choose not to use them. And again, anybody out there who can think of other reasons, feel free to add them to the list. Leave them in the comments. Any other things that I haven't thought of about why you would or wouldn't want to use a retractable leash. Now I wrote down some alternatives here, because there's its primary use of the primary use of any leash is safety. That's really what it is at the core. If it weren't for safety, like, there's not a, I mean, there are other reasons why we would need to use a leash, but primarily it's to keep our dogs safe. But yeah, we end up using it for many purposes, and depending on the goals that you have, different types of leashes might be even better alternatives. So many people are already familiar with the long line, which is essentially, it's a flat leash that just is really long, and they're nice because you can order them in almost any material, any length you want. Plenty of places will do custom long line orders. I'm seeing more and more businesses popping up doing biothane long lines, which is what I like because they're so easy to clean and they're waterproof. And so yeah, so the main benefit of the long line is it gives you that distance to let your dog do more roaming and exploring without you having to be, you know, within 4, 5, 6 feet of them. If you didn't want them completely off leash, without the downside of that constant pressure on their collar or harness that the Flexi does. So the long line's nice for that. The main downside, of course, is that you have to manage all of that slack, but there are some other upsides. So you can drop the long line if you're in a place where your dog is free to sniff about and explore, and you don't totally trust them off leash, or maybe you're still in training for off leash skills. The long line is great because you can drop it and then you are completely hands free. But if your dog did choose to suddenly take off or something, you've got time to grab the end of that leash to stop them from actually going off somewhere without you. So they're nice for that. I love a long line. And yeah, it's nice because you can test their off leash reliability as you're getting to know them and you're training them. You can, it's just a nice option. Yeah, and if they did take off, of course, the dog does not end up with any like loud clacking thing chasing them. So yeah, the long line is good for those things, but it wouldn't be fair for me to mention that without also mentioning there are some downsides. I did say that having to manage the extra slack can be kind of a pain, but you deal. It's, you know, most people are not going to use a long line forever. Once their dog's pretty well trained, I don't see too many people needing to continue to use them. But the other downsides of the long line are that you still need to worry about that line getting caught around human and dog limbs. Because yeah, I mean, this is true of any rope or line. Ask a sailor. You should always be careful around lines. But at least with the long line, usually, well, actually not usually, always, the long line is going to be made out of thicker material, so the risk of it like slicing through skin is much reduced. So that's nice. And then of course also you do still have to worry about them breaking, but again, the material is usually much thicker, much stronger, so much reduced risk there. But it's still out there, so you should know. So moving on, just use a regular standard 4 or 6 foot flat leash. This is my favorite thing. I mean, I love a long line, but like at the end of the day, for walking my dog, I would much rather, I mean, I use a 4 foot leash. For years, I liked having the extra slack of the 6 foot leash, but when I got dizzy, I realized I really like, especially for training, I prefer to have 4 feet. Unless he's allowed off leash, and it's either you're within 4 feet of me or you're off leash. Yeah. And again, with a standard leash, you can find, I mean, the variety is crazy. You can pretty much get any material, length, shape you want. I mean, they sell the rope ones, which are like round, or you can get like just the flat. You know what I mean by flat leash. Do I have one here? No. Just like the standard leash, you know, you can get nylon, biothane, rope, whatever. Oh, hey, wagging tail. She says, same for my dog, but we use a 6-foot leash. Yeah, I mean, the 6 or 4 foot, it's totally a preference thing. But yeah, and also you can get specialty styles that are just basically a flat leash, but there's like extra D-rings so that you can make it in different configurations. You know, where that you wear it over your shoulder, or make a handle, or you shorten it. Like they're so versatile, and they're so nice, and they make perfect tethers, like I said. So that's alternative number 2, which you are already aware of, but maybe some of these other ones you don't think about too often. So there's the hands-free leash, also known as, maybe sometimes called, the jogging leash, or a umbilical cord. And that is essentially, it comes with a belt you wear around your waist, and you can clip it. One end of the actual line has a clip that you clip to a D-ring on the belt, the other to the dog. And these are actually my favorite. I use my 4-foot flat leash with, I kind of fashioned my own. I had like a little belt with a D-ring. So usually I just put a carabiner on the end of my leash, clip that to the D-ring, and I'm hands-free, and it's great. The ones that you can buy commercially, usually, or at least the ones that I have bought, they're heavier, which, I don't know, like more weight around my hips, kind of like, I feel that, and it can end up hurting over time. So I'm not a huge fan of the heavier jogging leashes, which is why I like the one I kind of made myself. And the jogging, like if it's called a jogging leash especially, usually those have some give. There's a little bit of stretch for shock absorption, especially if you are a runner or jogger, like to take your dog with you. Those are great because, again, your hands are free. You can move freely. Your dog just stays right along with you. And if they happen to take off, like they've got that shock absorption, which is better. Hopefully, I mean, I think the vast majority of dogs would be better off with the leash attached to a front clip harness, or a back clip harness if they're already trained not to pull. But instead of a collar, like I walked Dizzy on a collar, but again, like only because I spent so much time and effort teaching him to walk nicely on a loose leash. It's always so hard to say, loose leash. So that yeah, because that's like one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm like, I just don't pull. I walked packs of 6 dogs Monday to Friday every day for like 5 years, and my body started to hurt real bad. So I'm like, no more pulling on the leashes. My shoulders, my neck and back, they just can't take it anymore. So when I got Dizzy, I was like, this is the first thing you're learning. You are going to walk nicely right next to me. So yeah, lots of effort. But yeah, if for the vast majority of dogs, like just put them on a harness. It'll be easier for everybody involved. Let's see, CK says, I found a great rope lead in Germany where I can wear over the shoulder and easily adjust from 6 foot to 4 foot and do that from my end and never have to unhook the dog. D-rings are amazing. Yes, I love them. And I love that, the like adjustability. I love those types of leashes. My next, like I want to get my next investment, I want to get a really, really good leather leash. I haven't had a good leather leash, and I think I would prefer that to the nylon or the biothane. But I want to find like a really good one that has the D-rings just where I want them. You know, leather's nice. Leather is, it's a good feel. You know, no slippage. Yeah, we like leather. So. Yeah. Oh, the other nice thing about, and this is pro tip, everybody, go out and get a carabiner. So I mentioned that I use a carabiner because I didn't buy the jogging leash. I just kind of like made one. I did that by just using a carabiner that attaches to the D-ring on the belt to the leash. And the nice thing about that is when I want to take my dog if I did want to just hold the leash in hand, I just take the leash off and easy peasy. If I want to use it as a tether, I can keep the D-ring attach that to whatever I need to tether him to. It's so convenient. It's really, really nice. The hands-free leashes are also great if you need to have your hands full with anything else. I mean, carrying an umbrella, or if you're pushing a stroller, or if you've got a young puppy and you're still house training or chew training and they don't want to be in the puppy pen for some reason, like, you can keep them attached to you so that you can keep an eye on them without risk of them wandering off and getting into trouble. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the hands-free leash. That's probably my favorite. And the other nice thing about just having that belt, getting into the habit of the belt being part of your walking uniform, rather than just grabbing the leash by the door, just getting used to wearing the belt, is that you can attach other things to the belt too. Like, I like to have a bandana always at my waist, because I mean, when you're dealing with dogs, hands get messy, whether it's just crumbs from treats or dog slobber or whatever. Like, I like to have something to wipe my hands on, because otherwise, knowing me, I'm gonna wipe it on my shirt and pants, and then I look like a slob. And so yeah, bandana is a really nice thing to have. So handy. And then we get matching colors, and I'll put one on Dizzy, and it's like, it's so cute, right? And then the other thing is your poop bag dispenser. I mean, there's so many different kinds of poop bag dispensers, and they can be so cute, and they're so convenient, and I love that they encourage people to just keep them with your leash so that you've always got one, so that you're never that person who doesn't pick up their dog's poop. But I don't like to have it attached to the end of the leash, mainly for the same reasons I mentioned with that are the problem with the Flexi, is that if you did want to drop the leash and let the leash drag, if your dog is maybe not totally reliable off leash yet, then again, they've got a loud clanking thing that's following them around, which can spook some dogs. Yeah, if you ever want to do that, then you've got to take the thing off. So with a belt, you can just attach that to the belt instead, and you're still in the habit of just like having it with you, so that you can be the good neighbor that I know you are. But it's not on the leash. Again, you know, these are my preferences, but you know, maybe people are interested. Okay, but there's more. The chain leash. So I suspect, this is just a guess, but I suspect that one of the draws for some people maybe of using the Flexi leash is that leash biters, leash chewers are less likely to bite a Flexi Lead. And it's a common problem, the leash biters. There are alternatives out there called chain leashes, that, you know, dogs are also less likely to bite. They exist, and they're good for that leash biting problem, but I don't usually recommend them because they're heavy and they're noisy, and that's pretty much the only reason I would ever think to use them. And there are better alternatives to teach dogs not to bite leashes. So, but you can know that they're out there. There are leashes made out of chain. And then also, this is another piece of equipment that I see used, and I'll mention it here, even though I don't recommend it, is the split leash, or the splitter. You can buy this as a full leash, or you can buy this as a leash attachment. But what it essentially does is it creates a contraption so that you can hold one handle, and that it eventually splits off so that you can walk two dogs at the same time, which again sounds so convenient until trouble arises. So again, sometimes, you know, maybe one dog pulls over and gets in a fight with another dog, and then the third dog is like just drawn along for the ride, which is unfair. Or those two dogs, you know, who knows? Sometimes they can get in a scuffle, and now they're fighting and attached to each other. So those can be kind of dangerous. I wanted to mention that just because Not because I recommend it, but because it's another one that like people might see and think this is great. It is convenience. I'm all about convenience, guys. I don't want to like, I'm not trying to talk anybody into like making your life more difficult, but I don't know. I see all the things that go wrong, so I want to help people prevent problems. So yeah. And there's more alternatives too. I mean, it's like the options are limitless. More and more dog equipment is being invented and put on the market almost every day. And so there's always going to be things like this, but yeah, just know there's that you have options. You do. So yeah, anybody else, can you think of any other ones that might be worth talking about here today, that I haven't thought of? CK said she found that that adjustable leash in Germany, and I do think it's like, when I've seen those in the States, and I don't know if it's a name brand or but I think they were labeled like Euro Lead or something, like it was a European thing. I don't see too many people using them here, but I've seen them in stores, and I think they're nice and convenient. But yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how big a fan I am of like D-rings and carabiners. They're so nice. Okay, I'm gonna let Dizzy back in real quick. Come on in. That'll teach him to. You go barking at people, you're gonna get kicked out of the party. You don't get the food up here anymore. Sorry, we had to make a new set of rules because you're interrupting the stream. Hop up. There we go. You stay on your square. You gotta. Oh. I was about to say, to train dogs, you should get really good at your aim. Being able to throw is really, really good skill to have. You would be surprised. Hop up. Good boy. Let's see if I can do this backwards. Ah! I'm practicing. We got a, speaking of new gear, we got a new travel crate. One of the ones that you can unfold and it zips, and it's made out of fabric. So I've been crate training Dizzy with the new crate, and you can also unzip the top. So when I've got him like zipped up on all four sides, but the top is open, I can practice my aim of tossing treats in there. And so far, I'm doing horribly. I didn't realize I was so bad. Hop up. I'm sorry. I'll get better. My aim will get better. I promise. Hey, there we go. Did you get it? You got it. Okay. Sit. 1 out of 3 ain't bad. Oh yeah, you're right, CK. Your dog does also have to be able to catch, at least in this situation. The crate, not so much, but yeah, you can teach your dog to catch. We used to teach this in all of our puppy classes, or at least we would start teaching. And people would get so discouraged if their dog showed no inclination to catch. And we would always tell people, like, don't give up. I mean, if you want your dog to be able to catch, don't give up, because that would be like taking your kindergartner out to play t-ball, and because they missed their first couple swings, you're like, ugh, he can't learn. He just doesn't have it in him. So what did we say about barking? You go hop up on your square. Thank you. Yeah, so you can teach any dog to catch. Some of them are more naturals, and luckily Dizzy's way better than I am at this game. But I'll get it. I will. Ah! He's a good sport though, right? Ah, okay. All right, I'm done embarrassing myself. Yeah, Karen, mommy needs a pitching class. Absolutely. So yeah, tell me, what do you guys think? anything we talked about today, any of these alternatives sound like maybe good options, anything that you hadn't considered that you might be interested in now. Anybody change their mind about the Flexi in one direction or the other? Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And as always, you guys, if you like this kind of content, helps me out big time if you hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or like or follow on Facebook, and share the video with anybody who also might appreciate this kind of content. So thank you guys so much for joining me again, and hopefully I will see you on Friday. You guys have a good one, and I will see you later.